Good day, minions. It is your overlord, Crowski von Kronos here, recording from my obsidian fortress atop the peaks of doom. And, I figured I would start yet another series on my YouTube channel, because we don't have enough of those already, right? But this is less of an organized series of videos and more so just, rambling thoughts. I've actually produced a few of these videos beforehand on this map. I really like this map, GM Construct Minecraft. It has a very calming feeling. You know, it's got all the familiarity of Minecraft with the familiarity of GM Construct melded together. It's a really nice combination. I enjoy it. So, that out of the way, I figured my first video on the subject, because again, this is just me rambling, so I might deviate from my chosen topic pretty quickly, but I figured to start off with, to have a foundation for what I'm going to talk about, I would go over the origins of my villainous persona, right? The origins of how I became so invested into the art of evil, into the art of villainy, and, all that cool stuff. Hello, cool dark place. Wow, hi. Hello, hello. So yeah, let's just get right into it. Oh, I was in the white void, I was in the dark void, now I'm in the white void. But, I guess it all started when I was around 10 years old, I think. Um, and the first real movies I'd ever watched, I think, were the Lord of the Rings movies. Because I was really young at the time, and, like, I rarely went out to see movies. I think the first movie I ever saw in theaters, period, would have been the Lego movie. But that was a long time ago, holy shit. But the first set of movies before that I watched at home, I think, were the Lord of the Rings movies, because I had them on CDs. And when I saw Lord of the Rings movies, I already didn't like the heroic fellowship characters. I didn't find myself invested with them. I found myself more invested with the characters of Sauron and Saruman, because they were depicted, especially Sauron, as this faceless evil. Saruman had more of a presence throughout the films. He was more of a, direct antagonist handling things. Sauron was the disembodied malignance, hiding behind shadow and flame. But both of these characters really interested me in that they were able to marshal large armies of various creatures. And also, like, they had this charismatic aura about them, right? That I think a lot of people, whether they want to admit it or not, desire in life, this ability to command legions and such. And so I found myself really gravitating towards those characters. So when I saw Sauron, and I mean, I wasn't a toddler, but I was still just a kid by that point. And when I saw Sauron get blown up and Barad-dûr collapse and everything, I was just so severely disturbed, I think. And I was irritated because, like, how would that happen, right? Like, logically, Sauron was the most intelligent character in the series of Lord of the Rings. I mean, honestly, I'd say he's even smarter than his master Morgoth, because where Morgoth just wanted to destroy and enact wanton cruelty, the Dark Lord of Mordor had a plan for the world. So I would definitely say Sauron had more of an intellectual aspect to him, a more knowledgeable, mystical aspect to him, whereas Morgoth was just an outright destroyer. And that's what really got me invested into his character. That's why he's one of my most favorite villains ever. Villain competency tier list episode on him probably will be for a special upload. Like, if I ever get to 100 episodes, God willing, maybe Sauron will be the 100th episode. But, the point of the matter is, I really found myself enjoying the character of the Dark Lord, and holy shit, this map has a weather cycle. I didn't even realize that. Or does it? No, I think it does, because I swear to God, this was brighter, like, a few seconds ago, or a few minutes ago, and now it's getting a bit cold, like, darker and stuff. Wow, that's really cool. But, yeah, I always figured that, like, Sauron would have at least stationed someone at Mount Doom in case anyone tried to infiltrate and slip past his legions to drop the ring into the fire, but I guess not. And that just always really confused me. And of course, I know Tolkien had his whole themes. He was a very Christian author, so his themes were about the arrogance of tyrants, and of course, Sauron was the colloquial tyrant. But that got me thinking. I mean, over my life, I mean, what's so wrong with tyrants, right? I mean, what's so bad about them? People always say, "Oh, we want choices, we want freedoms," but what do they do with them realistically? What you need to provide people is sustenance. You need to give them circuses. You need to give them entertainment. But you don't have to necessarily give them freedom. Okay, so the map is becoming clear now. That's interesting. Of course, this doesn't apply to me because I deserve my freedoms because I'm the Dark Lord. I'm awesome and cool. But most people, they don't really need freedoms. What productive things have they done with them, right? And I think Sauron had this mindset, rightfully so, and that's why he sought to control people. Those are my favorite types of villains. The ones who have this vision that few others can comprehend. They just want to impose it on the world by any means necessary. Because that's really what it means to have an ambition, to have a dream, is to control the world around you, to become a master of something. And if you have nothing like that, then you're kind of lost as a man or a woman. I mean, anyone in general. It's not discriminatory based on gender or race or anything. I mean, if you don't have a vision, then, what are you except just a hollow entity stalking the world until you wither away and your organic biomass becomes one with the worms in the very grass below you. So, that out of the way, that's kind of how I started my whole villain streak. Then I saw Star Wars. I saw Palpatine. I thought this guy was super cool, and I decided I really wanted to be like them growing up. Um, because a lot of the villains in our real world today, they're very boring and politicized. And I'd like to think I'm better than all of them because, like, I own what I am, right? And I'm more fun to engage with. But that's just my opinion, guys. You know, I know few will struggle to even fathom what I'm saying here. That's all right. That's okay. You don't have to understand as long as you listen. Um, but the people subscribe to this channel. They understand. They're part of an elite order of dark sorcerers and warriors that deserve the highest praises. A thing I hate though? Heroes. Yeah, that's probably number 2 on my list, if not number 1. It's honestly just kind of a fluctuating thing. Things I hate most, but heroes were always consistently going to be in my top 3 because I just really despise them. They just get in the way. And stories follow heroes because people like to see a hero, excuse me, a hero succeed against the villain, him or her succeed against the bad guy. What really does that yield, though, right? Because, I mean, heroes are just so pathetic. It just makes me laugh thinking about it. Because I just really can't stand do-gooder characters. Like Superman pisses me off. Batman is kind of cool because, at least he's got this morally gray aesthetic about him. He's got this flawed, in my opinion, code that doesn't let him kill the villains he's facing off against. So, you gotta, like, you're fluctuating there, wondering whether Batman is the real hero or not. But Superman, he's just a golden boy, right? I mean, I'm sure the comics have him deviating, but the Zack Snyder films definitely had an interesting take on him. But of course, the people did not like that take at all. Honestly, I thought that take was pretty interesting for the character, as Superman slowly learning to be human instead of just being that way outright. But at the same time, I mean, if he was raised by Ma and Pa Kent, I guess he wouldn't have that sort of detached attitude. So I get why the fans were mad to a sense, but at the same time, I mean, they reacted with such vitriol, and I just wanted to see Zack Snyder like complete his vision. I just wanted to see where he would go with it. Sadly, of course, he never got the opportunity. But whatever the case, I'm glad that we got those movies, the few DCU movies that were released before the whole canon was wiped, and it became the Gunverse of just people cursing a lot and raising the middle finger and saying crazy crap and fighting the people. And, every plot is just a mismatched team of criminals and convicts who are evil, but not that evil. They committed crimes, but they're not really morally decrepit or bankrupt by any sense of the imagination. And all they've been is just misguided or misdirected or abused by society and the world around them. And, through each other, through finding each other, through forging these companionships and these bonds with each other of friendship and fellowship, they ultimately succeed and win over the threat facing them, and they become a force to be reckoned with. It's Suicide Squad, it's Creature Commandos. I mean, it's the same identical formula, and same with Peacemaker too. Oh, see, the weather just changed. I was right. I mean, I did like Peacemaker. Don't get me wrong. But looking back on it, it wasn't that good. It was okay. I mean, I didn't think the series was amazing by any stretch of the imagination, to be honest. I mean, it was just more typical what I would expect from the DCEU. I have no idea if Gunn was in charge. Actually, let me check that. Holy shit, this map does have a weather cycle. Let me see. Who directed Peacemaker Season 1? James Gunn. Okay, so it was James Gunn. I'm not saying James Gunn is innately a bad director. I think he does have good ideas and he's produced good work. I mean, his Guardians of the Galaxy movies, I'm not going to just sit here and pretend that I'm some pretentious cinema how would I say, the cinema snob who is above watching these movies made for, the common audience. I like superhero movies. I like the superhero canon. Not because of the heroes themselves, I just call them superhero movies because that's what they're generally known as, but because of the interesting lore and the worlds and the stories they create. And I love supervillains for the most part. I like Lex Luthor, I like the Joker, well, some versions of the Joker. So I like seeing these characters in action. I like Mr. Freeze, Clayface, Darkseid, Bizarro, the rest, Brainiac. I can go on and on, but I like these characters and I like these stories and the universes they're set in. But I just feel like James Gunn has just got this repetitive formula going on, where over and over again he just releases the same identical story arc, but the characters are just kind of switched around. And I mean, if you enjoy it, I'm not gonna like trash you for enjoying it, right? Because I just mentioned that I got into movies and fiction and stuff because of Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, which is about as basic as you can get. I mean, that's about the white woman Starbucks coffee entry point of getting into fiction. So I have no platform, at least on that, to proclaim my superiority over anyone else. But you do have to also recognize at one point that, like, anyone can be fatigued of repeating the same things. I mean, Marvel recognized this, and that's why they're trying to change it up. I mean, in my opinion, Thunderbolts was pretty good. It wasn't amazing by any stretch of the imagination, but it was enjoyable. I mean, I had fun watching it. I liked the Sentry. I liked the characters. It wasn't the first Avengers. It wasn't Infinity War Endgame by any means, but again, it was a fun, enjoyable movie that I had no qualms with for the most part. And I can't really say the same for Suicide Squad. The new Suicide Squad, the one with Starro, where they go to that South American country. That was just, it was okay. I thought it was the best thing ever. But looking back on it, now that a considerable amount of time has been wedged between when I originally watched it and now, I'm just kind of rethinking my thoughts on the movie. Like, I'm thinking, was it really that good, or was I just hyped in the moment? Was it just hype moments and aura, as people like to say nowadays? But back onto subject, I don't really like heroes that much. I've never really enjoyed their presence in media. Another example of heroes I really hate, My Hero Academia, because the villain from that, All for One, I really relate with him. So to see him getting beaten by the heroes was really annoying for me. It was actually quite emotionally distressing for me, because I just didn't like seeing it. Of course, my perspective wasn't shared by many members of that fan base for obvious reasons, because I think the MHA fan base has the collective IQ of a sloth or a walnut. No, not a walnut. I was thinking of this one joke from Land of the Lost, I think the name of the movie was, where, like, they made a joke about a T-Rex having the brain the size of a walnut, only for the T-Rex to, like, reveal that a walnut in that world, because the main protagonists go to another world, right, and the T-Rex revealed in that world the size of a walnut was, like, the size of a lemon, or something, so the joke being that the brain was actually much larger than they anticipated, so he was able to track them down and all that crap. I don't know. But you get the idea, right? What I was trying to say. I mean, people who like heroes tend to not be as intelligent as people who like villains, for the most part, because people who like heroes just tend to go with narratives that are fed to them. They're more easily accepting of things that are outright told to them instead of looking into a story and learning for themselves. Which is kind of shocking, because in this information age, we have tools like the internet, we have resources where you can just literally look up all the source material you can for a character, and people just choose not to because they're just willfully ignorant, and that's just a bit shocking to me. Because, like, how can you be willfully ignorant in a time like this? Doesn't make any sense to me. But, yeah. You know, I am excited for Peacemaker Season 2. A little bit. Not too much, though. I'm just hoping it'll be better than Creature Commandos or the Suicide Squad movie, the one that came out more recently, not the one that's canon to the Gunverse. I think that's canon to the Gunverse. Yeah, I am pretty sure, because nothing in it really contradicts James Gunn's canon. You know what? Another thing that annoys me about James Gunn, right, is that he will go so far into making a universe his own that he will straight up like destroy all parts of a previous canon, no matter how useful or how sensible they could be. What I mean by this is, like, at the end of Peacemaker Season 1, right, there is a scene where fucking Peacemaker, he's leaving, like, an enemy base, he destroys a bunch of, aliens that are trying to take over Earth, right? He destroys their efforts, ruins their efforts. And when he leaves, the Avengers show up. Not the Avengers, what am I saying? The Justice League show up. It's Aquaman, Superman, Wonder Woman. I think Batman's there too, like those guys. And James Gunn has now just come out and said that that didn't happen, that Peacemaker ran into a different group of characters when he was leaving the building. I mean, you don't need to really do that, right? You could just say that he ran into the Justice League and just filter out the actors with "Hey, hi" or God knows what else and post later on, like what George Lucas did with the original trilogy. But no, apparently it wasn't actually the Justice League. It was some group of bureaucrats in the DC universe or something, and we see them in the Peacemaker Season 2 trailer questioning him. I mean, why do you need to do that? Because that's just unnecessary. That's illogical. That actively harms the canon and continuity of your universe. The only person you're hurting with that is yourself and, like, your ability to build a continuous, cohesive universe, a canon that you can definitively call your own. Because despite the fact that James Gunn has full creative control over this new DC universe, he needs to. I still feel like he could have incorporated some past Snyder elements into it. He could have incorporated, like, the first Wonder Woman movie. I feel like it wasn't that bad. It didn't contradict anything. Gal Gadot is a terrible actress. I don't even know how she's in the business. She probably knows some people, or she's fucking the right people. But that movie wasn't that bad in itself. I mean, despite the fact that you had a robot-faced Israeli just, like, running at the show, and it just, like, made it a very weird experience. It wasn't terrible by any means. I didn't find myself hating it. You could have kept that around. The Shazam movies, I mean, the first Shazam was okay. It was alright. Second one, I don't even recall a person that watched the second Shazam. I didn't even know if it was coming out. When I did learn it was coming out, I didn't bother watching it because I had better things to do, like not watching the second Shazam movie. So maybe it was good. I don't know. I can't make a definitive judgment on that. What other DCU movies are there? Let me see. DCEU movies. Snyder verse. Okay, so we got Aquaman. Aquaman, I really like both Aquaman movies. People say that they're mid. I can entirely disagree with them, but I really like the fighting and the choreography. That was pretty cool. I like the first Aquaman movie a lot, especially because of those, like, fight scenes. You had the trench, you had Ocean Master, who's pretty fucking cool, by the way. Like, especially with his, like, full set of armor. I mean, that dude's just that's oozing villainous cool factor right there. Besides the point. And you had, like, these huge undersea creature armies just charging at each other, and by God, it was just orgasmic to watch in the theater. I mean, bass boosted and everything. There are some movies you should watch in the theater. Like, if you don't watch them in the theaters, you're genuinely missing out. People say that you should watch all the movies you like in theaters, or else you're missing out. I don't agree with that, personally. I think that there's a classification of movies that you like, and between that classification, there's movies you should watch in the theaters, like, you really should genuinely, and those that you can kind of just, skip, or just, you're better off. Not better off necessarily, but you don't really have to watch them in theaters. And Aquaman, I'd say if you like action movies, then that's definitely something you should catch in theaters. If you don't, then yeah. I mean, I did, and I'm really glad I watched in theaters. The second movie, it wasn't that good by comparison. I mean, it still had the same fight scenes, and it still had the same level of cool factor. And everything. I really like the villain. He reminded me a lot of Nagash from Warhammer. There's this like undead necromancer god, and also Black Manta came back, and that was really nice to watch. But that aside, I didn't find myself that invested into the movie narrative as I was with the first one. So, there's that. But, it is what it is, right? I mean, some movies are not for everyone. At least some movies are not for everyone. I think definitively there is a movie out there for every type of person. So that's not what I was trying to get across. Um, I don't understand the self-sacrifice trope of heroes. Why would you like end your life for something that is clearly not worth your time? Like Superman has shown on multiple occasions he's willing to die for like ordinary humans. I would not be willing to die for anyone else, like ever. Like not once. I could never imagine sacrificing myself for another human being. Why would you do that? Death is the conclusion, right? I mean, I choose to believe there is an afterlife, but of course, if you don't, then sure, whatever. I mean, that's your cross to bear, pun intended. But whatever you believe and whatever comes next after the void comes over your eyes, I mean, that's it for this life. That's it for this world. Why would you end it protecting someone else? Your life should be for yourself. That's how I functioned anyway. And that's a very villainous way of looking at things, I guess. But that's the point, right? You don't get to be a villain and still have a nice way of looking at the world. You don't get to be a villain and still think that there's good in people. Because ultimately, the good in people is always overshadowed by their baser primal instincts. Thomas Hobbes was right. I mean, he wrote the Leviathan, really good book, by the way. And in the Leviathan, he said that humans function best under a benevolent philosopher-king. Oh, that wasn't Thomas. That was Aristotle. But he kind of built on that idea, so I guess I'm not entirely wrong. He would say that he had said that a tyrant needed to be like they needed to be a strongman tyrant, which I guess was a natural evolution of what Aristotle said about the Philosopher-King. And the idea of the Philosopher-King has always really appealed to me. I don't know if I could ever reach that ideal. Actually, wait. Did Aristotle? I'm thinking. I'm doing a double take because no, it was Plato. Oops. Yeah, see, when you ramble, you tend to forget things. Yeah, it was Plato. I'm a very forgetful person. I apologize for that. But being a philosopher king means a lifetime of being shaped by the environment around you, but also imposing your own will upon it. Few people can do that. Few. I don't even know if I'm capable of doing that. I like to believe someday I will be, but I don't think I'm fully mature and at that level yet. I mean, if I am someday in the level to be a philosopher king, I would definitely like to subjugate the world around me. Because I like being a dark lord, and I like telling people what to do, and I like being in control all the time. I think that everything should exist for my sake. Because guys, if you don't have that philosophy in mind, if you don't think that everything should exist for your sake, then what are you even doing? Right? What are you stalking the grounds of this earth for? Handouts? Love? Friendship? Those might seem appealing in the moment, but what really lasts with you? What sticks with you? Because no matter how much you try, most of the time in your life you will be alone. What will you have with you in those moments when you have no one around you? What will you think of yourself, of the world, of past events that have taken place in your life, of future events that might happen or might not, of the present and how you're currently living it? If you haven't really thought that out, then maybe it's time you started, you know? Maybe it's time you started thinking about what if I just did what I want all the time. Now, of course, there are things like societal obligations and the law. You can't just go around with a shovel and just bash people's heads in. I'm not saying that. Of course, we have those rules for a reason. I mean, as much as I'm tempted sometimes to cast a spell of sorcery or send a horde of orcs at someone that particularly annoys me, we have obligations to each other and to the human race for a reason. That's why we have a thing called civilization, as tenuous and precarious as it is. Because without it, most of us, myself included, we would probably not be around, or we would be very dramatically changed. And I'm not saying that you should suddenly just break free of your chains and become this anarchist fool. Some chains are necessary, but people overburden themselves with chains. People mistake morality with objective reality, when in fact morality is kind of a unique thing to every single person on Earth, right? Every single human being has their own sense of morality. Maybe some are identical to each other, and some are wildly different from each other, depending on perspectives and lived experiences. I would say an Israeli has a much different view of morality compared to a Palestinian, for example, or a Ukrainian to a Russian. And these regions, especially Ukraine and Russia, might be culturally similar because of proximity, but through politics, through previous wars and, breakaways and all kinds of instabilities, there has been a noticeable division in the way that certain ethnic groups and certain political groups and certain religious groups look at the world. And this has been codified into the human genome over the course of centuries. Buddhists have a wildly different way of examining the world than compared to Christians. Christians believe that God has given them this world and its natural resources and its luxuries and benefits for their usage. They believe, of course, in preserving what exists on the planet because, God would not be pleased if you sullied his creation with your irresponsibility and your selfishness. An example would be St. Francis of Assisi, who was well known for taking care of, plants and animals, and he was known as he was kind of seen as the church's caretaker of the wild, right? And he's a huge inspiration for many in the church who are for environmental protections. Whereas Buddhists are completely detached from the world. They have a monkish belief that the worldly influence, as complex and as far-reaching and as embedding as it is, should be completely removed from the personage of one's mental state. I mean, that's what a monk is. They live in monasteries, for the most part, completely separate from civilization, where they sit in quiet prayer and think about the Buddha and think about all the people who have followed the Buddha's examples. They think about how best to achieve enlightenment, maybe in this cycle or the next, because they want to escape the cycle of reincarnation and rebirth. They want to escape the endless suffering imposed upon them by the cosmic order of things, the universe. They want to escape the universe and enter a state of nirvana. And every other group, I mean, Hindus, Muslims, I mean, Jews, they all have these ways of viewing the world. All of these ways have been formed because of different experiences, of regions, of cultures, languages, dialects, politics, philosophy. I mean, the list can go on and on. I mean, misanthropic as I am about the human race, I'm not exactly the biggest fan of mankind. I cannot ignore our accomplishments. Um, the majority of humans, for me, are just, pawns to play in my evil game of darkness, of course. But not you guys, of course. You guys are special. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, for all, like, even the most diehard misanthrope, which I would not consider myself a diehard misanthrope, more of a casual, moderate misanthrope. I would not die on a hill for the ideal of misanthropy, because I think diehard misanthropes kind of leer into the realm of nihilists, and I am not a nihilist by any measure. I think nihilists are actually quite annoying, but besides the point. Even the most diehard misanthrope can admit that humans have accomplished really interesting things, really great things over the centuries, over the millennia. I mean, if you don't want to give mankind credit, then at the very least, it's very interesting what humans have created. Literature, for example, is one thing. I love reading books. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a huge fan of reading. I typically read like sci-fi and fantasy novels. Those are my favorite genres. Self-help books, I've read like one or two about like how to build your investments and finance. I didn't find those very compelling, because I guess I'm the worldly side of things. I just find that very mundane, and I've always wanted to live in the realm of the fantastical. I don't want to live as other people live. I don't want to have the same experiences as the people around me, right? I mean, then what's the point of living? I'm just repeating the same cycle that everyone else is, right? And the cycle is, find a woman, or if you're a woman, find a man. Of course, or if you're homosexual, I guess that would not. I mean, you'd find another man or another woman, whatever, you know. besides the point again. But, you know, find someone, maybe have a child or 2 or 3 or however many you decide to produce, and that's it. And then you grow old and die. That's just a cyclical, pathetic way of living, and it annoys me. The only reason I would ever consider children is to carry on my genetic lineage to ensure that, in a sense, I have not died when I pass from the world, but besides that, I would never seriously consider children. Children would only be a means to an end for me. They would not be something I would take care of or look upon fondly. I look upon them with ambivalence at best, right? I'm not one of those people that hates children. I would not look at a woman in a carrot, like rolling around her stroller with her baby inside and just think, oh, I hate that piece of shit, right? Because that's a waste of time. Again, right? Like, as much as I maybe dislike children, I would only care if they were a direct inconvenience to me. I don't have the time to be pondering and poring over the actions of other people unless they directly affect me and my ambitions and prospects. There is no reason for me to put any thought into you if you are not directly affecting my life in a positive or negative way. Like, you are nothing to me. You're a non-entity. But, you know, all's well that ends well, I guess. So, with that out of the way, guys, I will probably be releasing more videos like this in the near future. My next villain competency episode is still being worked on. It's, spoiler alert, it's Horde Prime from the She-Ra series, which I think a lot of you guys are familiar with. The She-Ra cartoon was pretty famous and popular back in its heyday. And I'm really excited to go over Horde Prime because he is, without a doubt, one of my favorite Western cartoon villains of all time. And I admire some of his traits. I think he could have done better in a lot of other ways, but I do admire how far he got. I think we'd be good friends if Horde Prime existed. He would definitely be taking my advice and my counsel a lot. I'm definitely sure of that. And if you guys don't think so, well, you know, believe it. Believe it. Alright, guys. So this has been the first episode of this informal series of the Crowski Rambling Saga. I hope to see you guys on the next video. Thank you all so much for following the channel and for liking my videos and commenting and subscribing. It's really nice of you all to keep contributing to my channel in this way, and I sure hope it grows because I want to keep bringing as many people in as possible. I love having new subscribers. I love having new followers because I had a vision late last year that I would be standing atop a platform looking over an army of adoring, slavering minions, and that we would be conquering the world and putting it under a swath of damnation and doom. And I can only do that with you guys under my heel. And I mean that in the most benevolent way possible. Alright, guys. You have a good one. Peace!